Welcome. In a past video, I showed you how we used Claude to get information from SAP. In this one, I'm going to actually show you step by step how I built that bridge. First, I'm going to start with an introduction to MCP, but if you don't want to see and want to go straight to the code, jump to the next section. To understand what we're talking about and what's an MCP, we have to go back to when AI first started and we were talking to ChatGPT to get a lot of good information, but not current information. When we tried to get current information, it would say, I don't know, my training data ended in 2023, right? So it could use its own information, it could not reach out to the world to get more information. That's when agentic AI came in, right? We start having agents which was not only a brain, but also eyes and arms that could reach out and get more information, for example, through Google searches, right? That's when we started getting a lot more information and almost using the brain, the agent, in this case, as a search tool. MCP comes as a way to make these tools, these arms, reusable, right? So instead of us having Cloud Desktop, for example, and having a tool embedded in the application, we have a separate server that we could still connect to Cloud Desktop that has that tool, but now it can connect to everything. It can connect to Cloud Desktop, it can connect to ChatGPT, can connect to Codex, right? And it can also connect to your own agents. So it's an open protocol that enables reuse of these arms and enables us to say, for example, get information from SAP of a sales order or create. So these tools are developed once and then reusable across applications. And that's what we're going to show today. I'm going to start by writing a kind of functional spec where I'm basically describing the tools that I need from my SAP server. So the SAP server has tools, and I'm going to describe each of them. Right? So I start with the business partner resolution. So I get an email from a customer, the customer has an email, and I'm going to use the OData server for business partners to get the corresponding business partner ID. Then I have the material, right? The customer says, I want X boxes of something, and I want to be able to, based on a maybe not so correct description, get my material ID. So I'm using a vector database to do similarity searches. Then finally, because I want to create a sales order, I go for the sales order API, the OData API, where I'm going to do a deep insert to create my header and items. Finally, I gave him some information about technical things, right? Like use Python because we're going to write in Python this. We're going to use the Python SDK, and we have to say what embeddings we're going to use for our vector creation. Finally, I say that I want a modular project, I want it configurable, and I want to be able to select my SSL certificate because without this, I won't be able to connect to an SAP system. I'm going to actually start building. So I'm going to create my project. You can use UV, you can use NPM, creating my directory called YouTube MCP basically. I move into that directory and I'm going to open Visual Studio Code. You can use whatever tool you want, but what I'm going to do now is paste my specification to Cloud Code. Right? You can use any tool you want, you can program by hand, but here I'm going to use AI to build my program because honestly this is so good and so fast that at the moment it makes much more sense to let the AI build your code and then you concern yourself with the logic, not the code. And now it's processing and we'll wait a bit just to get it done. I'm just going to fast forward a bit, going very fast. And then we get to finally to the result, right? So we have our project structure and it's describing what tools it built, right? All my tools that I asked for, they're being listed there. And finally the commands to start and test, right? Going over just back. So we see all the tools, what it did. So looks pretty good. My project structure, it's quite modular. I'm just going to go over to my main file, which is the best one, let's say, to see. So I'm using FastMCP and here are the tools. So MCP tool is what describes this is a tool. And if you look, this is the very important part, the description of the tool, because this is what's going to tell the LLM how to use it and when to use it, right? So I have my business partner, I have my material, and I have my create sales order. Big description because the AI needs to know I have this tool, I'm going to use this tool, right? So, and here just showing your data, okay, just going over it, okay, nothing special, just normal data calls, right? So nothing special here. And then, of course, if you go to the environment file, right, I said I needed things configured. So here, this is a prototype, okay, proof of concept where I have my passwords, I have my sales orders. In a real scenario, you would want to have a bit more of flexibility, right? You're not going to hard code everything, but this is just a POC. You don't want to put this in production directly. This is just to show you what things you can do. Okay, so now we're going to test our MCP server. Let's execute and see what happens. Well, that was a bit harder. I had some bugs that I needed to fix, but now let's finally go into it. So I'm going to execute this command, which enables like a test web page, right? Where I can connect to my MCP server and look at the tools that it gives me. So it's connecting. Okay, now I get the tools. So let's list the tools, and here they are. So everything I built is here on this page, and I can actually test, right? So I'm going to test with, for example, Dispatcho, and look, similarity score, very important because I can see it's similar. And now let's test with something else. Look, 868, right? So it means my server is working, and I can test this, and I could test all the tools before I actually go into my MCP client, right? So now I'm going to do that. So I'm going to grab this MCP that's working, and I'm going to connect it to my client. And here I'm going to show Claude, but it could be SAP Joule, right? In SAP Joule, you can also configure MCP servers, so you could deploy this to BTP and then run it there. So I fetched my configuration. That's just how you need to configure things. It's a JSON structure. And I'm going to Claude, I'm going to settings, and I'm going to add it, right? So MCP providers, I put my provider, and a very important thing is that you need to use the full directory of where MCP server is, right? I'm showing you a local implementation, by the way. You can run the MCP server in the cloud, but here I'm showing you how to run this locally in your computer, right? So I'm going to give it the full path so that it can run, because it's the client that's running the server. You don't need to start it yourself. It's the client, when it needs, that it's going to start that, right? So I got the path, I put the path, and now I'm going to show that it actually works. So I'm going to settings, I'm looking, okay, it's working, and I'm going to test it, right? And now I just do a test with a material, grab this based on the description, right? I use the Dispatcho, and I'm Portuguese, so this is Portuguese. And now it's going to translate into a material ID, right? So this is showing how you can do this. You could be doing this with SAP Joule, right? Like I said in the beginning, you can use these tools and connect to everything. You can connect to ChatGPT, you can connect to Claude. More importantly, you can connect to Joule too, okay? So in Joule Studio, you can configure the MCP server, and this would work. So here it is. I hope you liked it. I think if you liked it, you like and subscribe, please. And if you want the full code, you can go to the description, and there's a link to my GitHub where you can see the entire code for this demo. Thank you, and see you next time.